Thank you, councillors. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country. The Central Coast Council acknowledges the Palawa people as the traditional custodians of Rotorua, Tasmania, including the land, community, sea and waters where we live and work. Our community respectfully acknowledges the Palawa tribe of the Northern Country of Tasmania, their continuing relationship to this land and their ongoing living culture. We recognise that we have much to learn from the First Nations people, who represent one of the world's oldest continuing cultures, and we pay our respects to elders past and present and to all First Nations people living in and around the Central Coast community. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. We have an apology from Councillor Overton tonight, and welcome to those in the gallery as well. We'll move straight on to confirmation of the minutes. 1.1. Can I have somebody move that? Thanks, Councillor Viney, and seconded Councillor Hisker. Any query on those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 2.1 is council workshops. There's a list there of workshops. Can I have somebody move that report be received? Thanks, Councillor Dick Rose, a seconder, please.
Second.
Any queries on those workshops? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 3.1 is Mayor's communications. I have none this evening. 3.2 is the Mayor's diary. Can I have somebody move that be received? Thanks, Councillor Hiskett. Second, Councillor Viney. It seems to be a small diary. I remember the days when it used to be over a page long, but all of those functions were actually very good, particularly the Apex changeover dinner, which is always a pleasure to be with that group. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 3.3 declarations of interest. Anybody wishing to declare an interest? 4.1 is councillor reports. Councillors who have been appointed by the council to community and other organisations wish to report. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just reporting on a meeting of Slipstream Circus, attended as Councillor Hiskett's proxy. Thank you to Councillor Hiskett for allowing me to do so. It was great to see them. They're coming up to their very busy time of the year. In particular, I just wanted to mention to the table that the management of the committee have secured a meeting with Gavin Pearce MP, and they'll be talking to him about his commitment for funding of the new building on site there at the showground, and they just acknowledge the amount that was allocated in the council budget that may serve as a co-contribution to that. So, yeah, lots of events coming up for them, and please check out their Facebook page to see those events and be able to attend and support them.
Yes, I attended the Ulverston Community Swimming Centre Management Committee last month. Before I start on that, I just want to, on behalf of myself and Councillor Viney, who's on the Ulverston Surf Club Committee, want to acknowledge and congratulate Liz Eustace, who on the weekend took out Surf Lifesaving Tasmania's Coach of the Year award. So that was, you know, that's great not only for the surf club, but for the council that we have Liz's services. So that's, yeah, congratulations to Liz and all the other winners from the Northwest Coast as well. There's been a lot of work happening out at the surf club. There's been so many upgrades and everything done, and I would like to acknowledge Alan Graham, who's the Northwest Coordinator of the Swimming and Water Safety Program, and also the East Ulverston Pool Attendant, Michael Wilson, and they're relentless in the work they do in trying to improve and get things done out there. It's pleasing to note for the committee too that Simon Dent, even though he's not at East Ulverston Primary School anymore, is going to stay on as a education representative on behalf of the schools now that he's at Ulverston Secondary College. And they're looking at having a big sign actually put on the outside of the building, which will be visual from the road. So we're hoping that that will be done sooner rather than later. But other than that, other than a few things that still need to be done, that's on the maintenance program all the time. Yep, they do a great lot of work.
Any other reports? On to 5.1, leave of absence. There are no applications. 6.1 is deputations. There are none. 7.1 is petitions. There are none. And 8.1 is councillor questions without notice. Councillor Van Ryn.
No, Mayor.
No, Mayor.
No, Mayor. Councillor Viney.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. One for the Director of Community Service, one for the Director of Community Service enclosed, please. And I had two for the Director of Corporate Services that I understand would now be going to the Acting General Manager.
Those two.
Oh, in open, yes, thank you.
No, thank you, Mayor. One for the Director of Community Service enclosed. Thanks, Mayor.
And none for myself. Thank you. 8.2 was councillor questions on notice and no questions have been received. 9.1 is public question time. There were no public questions. Oh, sorry, that will be held at 6:40. 9.2 is public questions taken on notice and there were no questions taken on notice from the July meeting. Move on to 10.1, which is an investigation into holding one council meeting in Penguin. Councillor Hiskett, you wish to move?
Yes, I would like to move the motion as written in the agenda.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Fuller. Councillor Hiskett, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I think most of the supporting information that I need is in the report, which I'm sure everyone has had a good read through. I think this is a opportunity, coming out of COVID, especially to re-engage with our communities and in particular into the Penguin area, where we apparently haven't been since 2005 for a council meeting. I wasn't actually aware that the council had meetings in Penguin between 1997 and 2005, and I appreciate the General Manager provided a bit of information to that before I went ahead with this and her notes within the report. But it does look as though they were, it says minimally attended at the time anyway, but if you actually look at the numbers, they're still more than we've had here when we had before COVID. So I think that might just be a sign of the times in general. But the intent of this motion is to only hold one, not to have regular meetings there. And that is so that we can make it a little bit more event-like, maybe do some publicity, say we're coming to your area, something along those lines, and encourage as many people to come along and just see what local government is actually about. It's especially pertinent for this council as our meetings are held at night time, which makes it a little bit more cumbersome to travel for older people from that area to get across to here. I think there are many opportunities of different locations to hold it there, and I think that hopefully the technical difficulties that could occur are surmountable, and I look forward to what is able to be achieved by the council, and hopefully it is something that we can financially and technically do. So I'd like to hear the rest of the debate from the table.
The other speakers, Councillor Viney.
Yes, I'll be supporting the motion, being that it has actually been within the council plans to have meetings held elsewhere, and it's only really been technical issues, etc., that held it up in COVID, but it certainly puts it back in front of council to make consideration for that to happen. And so I'm quite happy with the motion as it is.
Thank you, Mayor. Before everybody jumps on the bandwagon, I would just like to give you something to think about, if I may. When COVID took hold and we had distancing rules, this room was turned upside down, the table was pulled apart, we had to sit 1.5 metres away from each other. There was no opportunity for members of the public to come in here because the room was too small. I mentioned that we should be moving into the Gawler room. Well, had I dropped a bomb, I think I might have got a better reaction because there was no way that we were going to move into the Gawler room. It would be too cumbersome and take too much organising. Now, the recommendation is that we conduct meetings in Penguin. Well, I'd like to know what's changed. This little bit of technology has improved a bit, but surely it must be quite an effort to move staff, stationery, everything else to Penguin. And I'm not going to support this, councillor, because I doubt very much that there's going to be a lot of interest. As you mentioned, it's been tried before and it was a failure. Now, you wouldn't remember that because you wasn't born then, but when I look at, nowadays the council meetings are available online, people can watch it or they can replay it afterwards, and the very small number of people that do, it's very disappointing, really. I mean, I can't blame them. I mean, it's about as interesting as watching grass grow. If we have a big major item on the agenda, yeah, we create a bit of interest, but I have seen sometimes only 20 visits. I have seen others up to 50. So, I mean, it does vary a fair bit. So, and people do have the opportunity to listen in at the council meetings and to know what's going on. To move over there, the whole show, it's just not worth it. And look, it won't affect me. I won't be here, but I'm thinking of other councillors in the future. So, I'm not going to support it, but, you've got your reasons for putting this in the agenda. I'm just sort of wondering whether the upcoming election has got something to do with it. But, well, it's true. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
My understanding, Councillor Van Ryn, was the technical equipment that was the reason that we couldn't go to the Civic Centre before. Councillor.
Just keeping to the motion at hand, and I too am thinking of councillors in the future, and I want to commend Councillor Hiskett on putting this motion forward because I think it's a great opportunity for anyone in the Penguin area who would like to come along if they've got ambitions to look at council later on down the track, to actually be able to come along and get the feel in the room as to what it's actually like. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Any other speakers?
Thanks, Mayor. A little bit like Councillor Van Ryn. But I'll give you some reasons why before I tell you what I'm going to do. It means investigate, which has got the right wording there, Councillor Hiskett has. Investigate and whether it's viable. I want to urge council to be very careful of just doing it for the sake of doing it to try and please a few, because it could cost whatever viable, could be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And if we think about what that $20,000 might do to the community groups out there that are run by volunteers, I think there'd be a lot better response to using that money other way. I think the intent's right. But the process that council meetings are run under doesn't allow for any engagement from people from the public. You're only allowed to ask 2 questions. Now, whether we agree with that process or not, irrespective, it's been forced upon us by the way it's been run over the past by certain councils, not ours. And we have that process now. 2 questions, that's all you're allowed to ask. You get a response, you can't do anything else, you can't comment. You come to, let's say tonight, the council meeting will run for 40 minutes, 50 minutes. Come to public question time, we've got to say goodbye to you. So we put you out to all that for the sake of 30 or 40 minutes. I do agree with finding out how local government is run and the process at council meetings. What I wouldn't like to see happen is this overshadow the community meetings that was being held pre-COVID. That is by far a better way of communicating and engaging people than any other way. It's informal. You can have them day, night, anytime, and anyone can come anywhere and around all the districts. I think we just got to be really careful how far we want to go in pushing out and spending money for the sake of, you know, for people to come and sit and listen for 2 or 3 minutes or and ask a couple of questions. Residents can send their questions in. They're allowed to send them in. You've got to read them out. We don't want to become like a Burnie City Council where they're not reading certain questions. I believe we're very transparent as a council, very acceptable and very inclusive as a council. At our process the way it is at the moment, it's taking that away from public comment from the floor. And I think sometimes they waste their time. Having said all that, I am going to support the motion because I think the intent's right. But by gee, I would urge council, the future council, to really think about it and not go overboard just for the sake of doing it and set it up to fail there with only 2 or 3 turning up. If we could set it up with functions afterwards or beforehand, great. I can remember a pursuit I was doing a decade or so ago. I'm back from the West Coast, called into Rosebery, went to a council meeting. That was before the rules changed. As a person off the street, didn't even live in the West Coast, had a meal with them, could talk to the residents, could talk to the councillors. Then they went back and continued their council meeting. Them days are gone. Them days are gone, man. I think the intent's right. We just got to make sure if council does it, that it does work. So I will support the motion because of the intent.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Casey, for putting it up. I concur with the opinions of Councillor Carpenter and Councillor Van Rooyen. As I agree, the investigate is a good way to be looking at it. Everything that Councillor Carpenter's just said are the same things that I've been thinking. Nowadays, I think us as a council and all councils are a lot more accessible than they have ever been. People are watching now, perhaps. If they're not, they can actually pick it up later on and watch it. And I think that the forums that we've had, the evening ones we've had down at Haybridge, we've been to Guns Plains, we've been to Turners Beach, and all those sort of ones are much more important than just people coming necessarily just to sit and watch us debate a subject. So I'll be happy to support it in this instance, but I don't want to see it be something that becomes onerous. I'll be interested to see what the cost is. As has been suggested, our equipment now is much better, but then you've got to have the right bandwidth and so forth, no doubt, to be able to transmit it properly and to be able to record it well. But yeah, I've got my reservations and whether there's really a need. But I will support it in this instance as well.
Any other speakers? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with those points. Those other events that those suppers and morning and afternoon teas are vital. So we mustn't creep into those. I was surprised, I have to say, that the motion was supported. I always sort of felt that there was some reluctance. Not that I wasn't supporting the motion. I will support the motion. I was just always felt that there might have been some reluctance to choose particular locations or particular townships over others. But Penguin is, an obvious point of population. Again, perhaps the people that have historically been most interested to come along have been people with development applications or particular interest with items on the agenda, and as has been said, they can easily access that from home. So I'll be supporting the motion. Congratulations, Councillor Hiskett, for giving it a kick along and putting it on the agenda for the new council to support it. Other councils, do go out to their townships. Waratah, when you do, I believe that either Kentish or Latrobe also do. So as part of that review and consideration, it'd be interesting to have a chat to the management of staff of those other councils that have done that. on a regular basis and see whether they think that it adds value to their community. But I'll be supporting the motion.
Any other speakers? No. Councillor Viney. I missed you, sorry.
Say a word.
Well, I'll have a say. I absolutely agree with the sentiment in the motion, and I understand why you've put it up, Councillor Hiskett. But like Councillor Van Rooyen and our Deputy Mayor, traditionally we've had really low attendance at our council meetings. You know, generally there'd be always 2 that used to turn up regardless of what was on the agenda. And unless there's something on there that's, you know, a bit controversial, or, you know, there's a particular interest that somebody has, you know, sometimes we just don't have anyone in there at all. And it's, with all respect to you here tonight, it's lovely that that you can come along and actually witness a council meeting, and that will always be the case. You know, where it's held is irrelevant, I think, but certainly we'll welcome anybody to our council meetings. But generally, they're pretty mundane. You're passing minutes, reports, all of those sort of things, and it's nothing terribly exciting, as you've said, to actually sit here and listen to. But on the other hand, some of you have spoken about the morning teas and the suppers, and I think we haven't had those over COVID, but they're the things that I'm really passionate about, because that's where you take the whole council, or as many as possible, and the staff out to those communities. You can talk about all of the local issues and what really affects them. You can, you know, our staff come out, so they're taking notes, they'll get back to the people, and that's the sort of engagement that we must get back to, and we must try and do a little bit more regularly, because that's where people actually get to have a say and give us their ideas and their feedback. So that's the sort of thing that we want. I don't want to stop people from coming to council meetings if that's what they enjoy, you know, doing on a Monday night. But as many others said, they can actually sit at home and watch those meetings if they've got particular issues. I don't have anything against moving, you know, down to Penguin and trying it. I'm quite happy, and I think the Penguin people would probably really appreciate it. So I'm not going to vote against it, but I just think sometimes these things I would prefer to discuss in a workshop, because then you can come out with some other ideas as well. As long as the new council really gets back into that community engagement out in the community, then I don't mind as far as meetings go. As you know, if it works to take one to Penguin, I'm not going to vote against that. So that's my say. Councillor Hiskett, would you like to close the debate, please?
Thank you.
It's been a good debate.
All I've heard so far is that we're not entertaining. Perhaps with the new council we might be. Look, absolutely respect the decision. I would have put this motion up two years ago, because when I first started on council, this was something that I wanted to do, but wanted to get to a field councillor, and then COVID happened. And then again, I am just as frustrated with you, Councillor Van Rooyen, about not being able to move to the Gawler room, because that's absolutely what I wanted to do too, and got told again and again that we couldn't. So I was surprised as Councillor Fuller when the General Manager supported this motion too. That's not the what I was expecting, because I was expecting the same thing. Well, we couldn't do it there, we can't do it now, but it must be the case that the technology has evolved enough that it's not quite as bad now. So, you know, that's not a timing issue. But anyway, I think this idea, sorry, and I do agree with some of the sentiment you put forward too, but this idea that it only goes for 40 minutes, it's not very engaging, you know, is a reason that people shouldn't come. Like, you know, why don't we bar the doors now then if it's not fun? Why like, you know, I think that argument just doesn't quite hold enough steam for me that we should be trying. What more could we encourage people to do to get here, instead of thinking that it's not worth coming here, and we're telling people that it's not worth their time to come here because they're only here for a few minutes. So
I didn't put it that way.
Well, sorry. Yes, I probably put words in your mouth.
Said about the process, Councillor.
And I think we've got another thing about that we've got this technology available now, but we should be careful letting technology replace personability as well. Like, we still need to be approachable to the people who are not, and there are a lot of people in our community. I think the figures were 28 or 32% or something like that that don't even have computers. They're not going to be able to watch us on Facebook, and the majority of them are probably the older population as well. So I think, traditionally we have had low attendance, especially recently, COVID not included, but prior to that. But perhaps then we should make it a bit more interesting. Perhaps this can do that, and that's the intent of the motion. I say that in there. Let's make it a little bit more event-like, and let's combine it with the morning tea or the evening tea. Let's have the council meeting. Closed sessions normally don't take very long. We can sit there and finish that and invite everyone back in and have that morning tea experience at the same time. That's the sort of thing I'm thinking. That's a great idea of adding that in and making it. Why don't you come along to the council meeting, have it at the Dial Park? There's plenty of room, and then afterwards we'll all sit down and have a chat afterwards and do that. So that's sort of what I'm envisaging. If it is, I agree with you. I mean, if it's going to cost $60,000, then by all means, I don't think that's worth doing that for that. But if it's going to cost 5 or 10 or something around there, perhaps, I'm not sure. As I said, it's up to the new council to decide if that's viable or not, and that's why I've left that word viable there, because that is up to interpretation from the councillor. So anyway, thank you for your comments. All I appreciate it.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Motion is carried. 10.2, the minutes and notes of committees of council and other organisations. Can I have somebody move that those minutes be received? Thanks, Councillor Fuller. Secondly, Councillor Rose. Any queries on those minutes, Councillor Fuller?
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to the audit panel, I'll just mention that before I forget that there may be an error there in relation to the implementation of the waste levy. So perhaps for those on the audit panel, when you get to approving the minutes, you might just have a double check of that. But particularly it was in relation to the community swimming centre, and I thank Councillor Diprose for the update that she gave earlier, because I'm sure I'm not alone. I've been wondering for the last 3 years what was happening with the upgrade and who was paying for it and how that was being rolled out. So that the minutes of that meeting and your update tonight answer many of those questions for me. So thank you, and that's good to see that that the department seems to have taken ownership of all the large pressing items that were required.
Any other speakers?
Yeah, I'd just like to concur with Councillor Fuller there. I read the minutes of the swimming committee, and again thank Councillor Diprose for her report as well. Like you, I've been very pleased that they've picked up the tab for all the maintenance that's been required out there, because it was quite extensive and it's still ongoing. One of the interesting other comments, obviously the subdivision proposal out there is still ongoing. Obviously Simon Dent has had a fair bit involved in that, so it's pleasing that he's happy to continue on board with that to get that through to fruition, because I think that'll be an important development if that can sort of get up and going into the short to medium term for land availability for our community. Thanks.
Any other speakers? Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? 3 is the common seal. You've got an updated schedule there. Can I have somebody move it? Thanks, Councillor Beswick. Secondly, Councillor Viney. Any queries? Motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.4 is contracts and agreements. You have an updated schedule there. And have somebody move that be received, please.
So move me.
Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Second, Councillor Fuller. Any queries? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.5 is correspondence addressed to Mayor and Councillors. Again, I think we have another schedule. Yes. Can I have somebody move that? Thanks, Councillor Hiskett. Secondly, Councillor Viney. Any queries on that correspondence? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just perhaps a question on notice. I couldn't find a reply to the correspondence of the 5th of July from the Penguin Lions Club. The request, their letter of request is on Docs on Tap, but there's no reply. So perhaps somebody could just upload it if it's been done, or otherwise.
Any other queries? Put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Motion is carried. That brings us to the end of the general management section. Councillor Fuller, you had 2 queries for the assistant. The
acting. Indeed, I did, Mayor, and so they were would normally be directed to the Director of Corporate Services. They are in relation to dog management. I've received a body of work that has been done by members of the Penguin District School community in relation to the dog park. They've done some Facebook surveys. They've sat at the dog park in Penguin and interviewed people that came to use the dog park, and lots of comments and suggestions for improvement and so forth. So I suppose the question to the director would have been, if I can furnish, I would appreciate being able to furnish him and his staff with that information for their consideration. There's a lot of work there. The other was also in relation to dogs. Ongoing issues with dogs off lead in areas where they should be on lead, particularly after hours. The Turners Beach Football Club and Blackburn Drive in particular. So we had asked previously that, for the director to explore some after hours surveillance or work in the Turners Beach area for dogs off lead, and I suppose my question was, had he had a chance to consider that, and what was the determination about us being able to do some after hours type surveillance work. So any information that he has coming back in relation to that would be appreciated.
Move on to community services. 10.6, action to alleviate stress on homeless or displaced people. Councillor Fitzrose.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to move a slight amendment to that motion. So I'll just read the motion out now. That the Central Coast Council do whatever it can immediately to help alleviate any stress on homeless or displaced people within our municipality through the urgent consideration of the following actions. 1. Open the appropriate spaces and facilities at the Ulverston Showground. 2. Urgently follow up with the state government to allow for the use of the overflow caravan park and facilities at Buttons Creek. 3. Open up any appropriate halls for use, for example, the Sprint football ground. 4. Make public toilets 24-hour access. 5. Make available a public shower block. 6. Initiate a meeting with Housing Choices, Anglicare and Mission Australia to discuss what the Central Coast Council can do to assist displaced people. 7. Initiate a meeting with the Federal Minister for Housing and Homelessness and the Tasmanian Minister for Mental Health and Wellbeing to discuss funding for a safe night space in Central Coast. I can just like to speak to my motion now. My motion is about... Oh, sorry.
I'll second that, man.
Thank you. My motion is about what we can do now whilst waiting for any long-term strategies to be put in place. The municipality of Central Coast is a beautiful one filled with many residents who assist their friends, family and strangers when they are in need. And although this is commendable and greatly appreciated by all, extra assistance is needed. An action for this motion has several elements. They have been developed from having discussions with Housing Choices, Anglicare and others, as well as having discussions with those in our municipality that are doing it tough at the moment through no fault of their own. Ulverston Showgrounds. Some empty buildings at the showgrounds could provide a warm shelter for anyone needing it. And also we could look at a swipe card system for anyone needing to use the facilities. And an example, a swipe card system could be looked at this and funding for that. Overflow Caravan Park at Buttons Creek. This is another great space that could be utilised and facilities made available for anyone who is misfortunate enough to have been living in a tent or vehicle, and it has been discussed for many years. I know that this has been discussed with the State Minister Nick Streets already at a meeting recently which I attended, but feel that council need to continually push for an immediate discussion on site. Public toilets. Central Coast need more public toilets which are open 24 hours. This might not seem like a big issue, but it certainly would make a big difference to many who need to use the public toilets, for they are the only facilities that are available to them. I know of someone living in their car who sleeps at the 4th Recreation Ground at night because she has access to a toilet 24/7. Public shower block. We need to give people access to a public shower until we can build a public shower block in the future. This would not only assist those displaced residents, but would then also be available to anyone in winter who is struggling and has had their power cut off and might need to use a public shower until their next pay and they can sort their financial issues out. Emergency meeting with Housing Choices and Housing Tasmania. After discussion with Housing Choices, it was clear to me that there are services that the Central Coast Council could provide when requested assistance in providing a trailer and tickets to someone who is in jeopardy of being evicted out of their home due to not having the financial ability or capacity to hire a trailer to take hard rubbish to the tip. Request meeting with Federal Minister and State Minister. I believe it would be of great benefit to initiate a meeting with the Federal Minister for Housing and Homelessness, who is based in Tasmania, along with the State Minister for Health and Wellbeing, to discuss funding for a safe night space in Central Coast. We need to focus on why we should do something as opposed to why we can't do something. Thank you.
Any speakers?
Yes, Mayor. First of all, I congratulate Councillor Diprose for bringing this up. You know, we're all aware, I guess, that there are people that are homeless in the municipality, and there has been for a long time. This is not just a new phenomenon. I can remember for 12 years I had the milk run here in Ulverston, and I'd be around the streets here before daybreak. And I can remember going into the, there was a joint in King Edward Street for young people. I just forget what it was called now.
Drop-in centre.
Pardon?
Drop-in centre.
Drop-in centre. And I tripped over a young lady sound asleep in the entrance to the door. Anyway, she squealed and I got out of there as quick as I could because all sorts of allegations could be made. And I got out of it, and I have seen people, one fellow that I often saw sleeping at the sound show. There was another fella camped up quite permanently in that little barbecue shelter there near Shropshire Park. And so we could go on. There was a homeless man wheeling a shopping trolley down the main street here the other afternoon, or actually it was evening. And he had all his worldly possessions in a shopping trolley. I don't know where he was headed. It's a sort of a silent problem that we have, because unlike in some other countries, we don't have people openly sleeping out on the streets, but they are there. I had a pretty fair session this afternoon with Andrew Webb from the Salvation Army, and I asked him what really is the extent of homelessness in our municipality. He told me that there were 30 to 35 people sleeping rough. And by rough, he means in cars or tents or anywhere where they can get a bit of shelter. But there are over 100 people that he knows of that are couch surfing. So if you include those amongst the homeless, then we've got a big problem. It's a very complex problem. There are many reasons why people are homeless, as you would all know. Family breakup, family violence, mental health issues. Look, and the list goes on. Councillor Diprose's ideas are all good. There are some there that we need to consider. Opening up of a hall or a space for people to go to, I believe should be supervised. you would need to have supervisors there. If a woman, fleeing family violence bunks down for the night with the kids, she's got no idea who's going to come in there. She may not feel safe. The Salvation Army in Burnie run a home for, or not a home, a place we'll call it, for homeless people that accommodates up to 15, and they have full-time supervision. Now, some of that supervision is paid for by the state government and the rest by the Salvation Army, and some volunteers go in there and supervise. And he suggested that that would be paramount. You really got to have that, because if the council opens up a building to allow people in, then they also have a responsibility for their safety. So it's a complex problem. We're not going to come with a solution straight away, but some of the things that Councillor Diprose has suggested are things that we could implement straight away. You know, leaving toilets open is paramount. Even a public shower somewhere in the CBD where people could, have a decent shower. But yeah, look, I sympathise with those people, but it's not sympathy that they're after. They want practical assistance. And so I commend the motion to the council.
I'm just wary it is after 6:40, but I would like to continue this debate unless there's a burning question there and somebody would really like to insist on having public question time right on. Be happy for us to continue this debate, not have a public question time straight after. Councillor Viney.
I too would like to thank Councillor Diprose for her motion. Homelessness is a big problem, and I'd put it that if it hasn't reached crisis point now, it's very close to getting there. There are lots of issues in Australia at the moment which are causing homelessness, as well as what Councillor Van Ruin spoke about, but interest rates, house prices and rental deficiencies on their own are going to put people out of formal housing, and I think it's that we need to act, and urgent action is required in this matter, and I'd like once again to thank Councillor Diprose for the motion.
Thanks, Mayor. Again, like the others, I'd like to thank Councillor Diprose for bringing this forward. It's a tough area, and it's very easy to not, like, as a resident of the town, it's not. We see the people that might be in their tents near the camping grounds and so forth, but it's a problem that not everybody's going to be able to see, and it's the people that are probably, unfortunately, in that space that know where the other ones are. I thank Councillor Diprose for amending the motion slightly to be able to accommodate some of the things that we may not be able to do that we would like to do. As Councillor Van Ruin said, it is very important, if we're going to be opening up our public spaces, that we have some supervision of those spaces. And the Mayor mentioned earlier this evening of how there's groups of people out there that are looking to perhaps open some spaces where they will, with volunteers, with safe spaces. I would encourage us to talk more with people that are in that area of looking after the homeless, so to give them safe places. So it's an important issue. It's sad that we're in that space. As Councillor Viney said, it's probably only going to get worse perhaps in the longer term with interest rates and the way the economy is perhaps going to be going and so forth, which is sad. But yeah, I commend the motion, and I'll be supporting Councillor Diprose's motion.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Diprose. And I often come to the table and throw simplistic ideas on the table and at our workshops, and thinking when you work for yourself, you think of an idea and you implement it tomorrow, and it's always easy that way. And the cattle sheds and the sprint ground and everything like that, they are simplistic ideas. But I was listening to a show this morning on the radio and the litigation that can be forced upon council if we don't do it right. And sometimes we're in a sad world. We really are. What was once simplistically you could do, now we change rules because of one person or whatever, because of the minority, so we can't help the majority. It's a really, really sometimes annoying place to try and get action. And I can understand Councillor Diprose's frustration about action, and it is about action. We put motions forward, or councillors put motions forward and strategies forward, and we don't action them enough. And a lot of times it's because of we can't litigate against some of the problems. I think the conclusion and the recommendation from the director, I thoroughly agree with the way it's gone about. And we know we've got a strategy coming forward we want to work on. Two things that meeting with the ministers, the relevant bodies, could expeditiate everything you want to try and do when you've got a third party also wanting to push it. So if council lead it, doesn't mean to say council have got to foot all the bill. If council lead it and publicly lead it well and properly, why wouldn't the government support it financially? Where would they want to be in the public space when we've got a great idea, we've got buildings that can be suited, might take a bit of doing, you've got security there, and I totally agree with the security space, the security and people being supervised, that's just a must. Why wouldn't they want to pay for it? In reality, it's their role. But we're told continually we're the closest to the community and we pick up and fill the gaps. And I think that's going to happen more and more, Mayor, through the future of local government. But the state and federal government have got to understand that local government can't afford to do it on its own, filling these community roles and filling the gaps in for them, where they let themselves down. I often wonder if you went back down through Parliament House and dug back into the archives, how many strategies they'd be there sitting on homelessness and welfare in the community has never been acted on. And that's what we do bad, not us. That's what happens. And we pick up them roles. So there is some urgent actions in there. The showers and frustration, as we spoke about for quite a number of years. And Councillor Diprose foreshadowed the motion quite a while ago. Spoke about the showgrounds a month or so ago, just as I said, simplistic ideas. And the debate will bring out the best answers and the best actions at the end of the day. Some of the things can be done, and I do firmly believe that we can put a good enough case with good people. You know, I've total confidence in our staff to be able to run programs and organise things. We can go to government with the right processes in place, the right applications. You'd be a brave person in Parliament to say no under the current circumstances. Truly believe that. That's how we go about it. So I do urge that we get on with it and completely support the motion.
Thank you. A lot's already been said about it, but and I concur with most of the previous speakers, but I agree with that statement and the council's report that local government isn't adequately resourced to take this on as a primary responsibility, but we certainly have a role to facilitate it. And I think that's what this motion does, and what it does in the aspects of talking to the state and federal government is this gives a direct impetus to the government that this motion has passed through the council, and all councillors hopefully have recommended it be, and that gives it a lot of weight to speak with those. It's not just a bureaucrat conversation. It's the people. The people want this to be actioned, and I commend Councillor Diprose for the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, also commend Councillor Diprose. And of course, we have the action that's in this year's action plan, because we have been trying to get our heads around our role in this space for some time. But I commend you for bringing it forward. And you know, I'm struck by the term "let not the perfect be the enemy of the good." So let's find what we can do and do it as quickly as possible. Mayor, I wanted to share last Thursday evening, I was pleased to chair a meeting that was brought together by the Penguin Community Op Shop in Penguin. We had over 30 attendees that came together to talk about this challenge, along with the challenge broadly of poverty. And there is some fabulous goodwill there amongst the stakeholders in Penguin to find some local solutions. Council was represented by Simon Angili, and he gave the room an understanding of what it was that we were trying to look at as in relation to facilitation, and some of the very concrete things that came from that meeting were showers and toilets. The community of Penguin has its own way of raising money. It will continue to raise money. It continues to provide mobile phone recharges. It continues to provide electricity recharges. It continues to provide fuel vouchers and food, but it can't provide showers and toilets. So if there was one thing that I looked at in your notice of motion and in your list, I just went, that is our core business. So I would I certainly commend and support the motion. And in the time that I have remaining, I just wanted to share 3 stories that stuck in my mind that were shared with us on Thursday night. So I'd spoken to you before about Scott, who lived at Watkins Beach, and Scott was there all over summer with the good grace of some contractors who shall remain nameless, who were doing some work there. Of course, the shelter that was provided by that infrastructure work has now gone, and Scott is now at Sulphur Creek in a van that he has secured. The van isn't drivable, it's not registered, he can't drive it because he doesn't have a licence, but it provides him some shelter, and he survives off the facilities and the food that is provided largely through the volunteers of the Penguin Op Shop. Last Wednesday night, there was a message that came from a woman who was in her mid-50s who had been renting privately in Gunns Plains. She'd just been advised that the owner would be removing it from the rental market because they were going to renovate it. They'd given her an indication of how much the rent was going to go up. It was now beyond her means. She has lived there for over 10 years. Her question was not, her question was not, help me, this is a disaster, I don't know what to do. She'd already been through that in her mind. Her question to the volunteers on that message group was, I'm going to live in my car, where do I park it? So then we had to brainstorm where a 55-year-old woman on her own that is going to be now sleeping in her car, where is the safest possible, well-lit place with access to toilets, where we might send her. And another young man who lives at Kamina, he lives in a shed off the back of somebody else's property with pay-as-you-go electricity. He works, but he doesn't earn a living wage. He works cutting wood, and most of his wage that he does earn, or the money that he receives, goes for fueling his truck and paying the rent. So he is now a regular at the Penguin Community Op Shop for food that supplements his daily food intake, and money that he will spend on candles, which is what he uses of a night time because he can't afford the electricity that's attached to the shed in which he lives. So sometimes, you know, those stories will absolutely floor you, but some of the stakeholders that Councillor Diprose has mentioned there in her motion were there last week, and there is a real wish to do some local solutions based work, but showers and toilets is the thing. And anyway, commend the motion and share those stories with you for what it's worth, and ask it to remain front of mind in the coming year.
Probably not much more than I can add to everything that all the other councillors have said. Other than to say how inadequate I feel to thank Councillor Diprose for bringing this up, because you have talked about this for years. And we have sat here and listened, and we all understand the problems, but we've not known how to deal with it. It was too hard for us to come up with some solutions, and what you've put in here may not work, but at least it's a starting point for us to be able to make a difference. Thank you. Would you like to close?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do have a story and just a couple of things I want to share with people. Forgive me for a second.
It's my fault.
No, that's okay, you know. The story I'm gonna share, I think it might be the same person that Councillor Van Rooyen saw pushing his shopping trolley, and I encountered him on Saturday night at 8:45. I'd been out for tea, and I had someone say to me, they were talking about the motion. I had someone say to me, I know there's homelessness, but I don't see it. You see it in Melbourne, you see it in Launceston, I don't see it here. And I said, well, that's probably because in Melbourne, in Launceston, even in Devonport, I've seen it. The shops have all those little enclaves where people can actually get in and shelter, where our shop fronts are all straight across. We don't have anywhere down the main street for people to sort of get shelter. Anyway, so that was fine. I then proceeded to drive down Raby Street because my daughter was finishing work at 9 o'clock and I needed to pick her up. So driving down from the clock, and I too saw this gentleman with a trolley. You could see he had a backpack and various things, and you know, he had shorts on, and you just knew that everything he owned was in that shopping trolley. But that was fine. Anyway, so I parked the car and I was doing something on my phone, filming time. Next minute he's standing right there at the window, and you're sort of like, okay, so I put the window down and he said, I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't suppose you have a blanket in your car because it's going to be a cold night tonight. And I'm thinking, look, oh, no, I don't have anything. I said, look, no, I don't. I'm sorry. I said, but if you'd like to stay here and take a seat over there, as soon as my daughter comes out, race home, I'll grab you a doona and we'll bring it back. So Tara gets in the car. So he went and sat down on the seats outside the pizza parlour with his trolley. And I rang my partner and said, quick, find me a doona and a doona cover. So we raced home. Tara raced in, and while her and Andrew were putting a doona cover on the doona, I'm looking in the cupboards. He didn't ask for food or money or anything like that, but like, you know, there was a full barbecue chicken and other bits and pieces that I was able to grab, put in the bag to give him some food as well. So we're getting down there and Tara and I having the discussion. I said, gee, I really hope he stayed there and we haven't been too long and we get down there and he's gone. Fortunately, we got there, he was still there. We got out of the car and we put the doona in a big plastic bag, hopefully that it'll be able to keep it dry and that throughout the day or when it wasn't being used, and keep it in a reasonable condition for him. Anyway, he gets out of the car and he's got this big grin on his face and he's holding up this pink cushion. And he goes, while I was waiting for you, I was talking to these two teenage girls and they asked me what I was doing. He said, and I told them I was waiting for someone to bring me back a doona. They had then gone into Coles and bought this cushion and brought it back out to him. And he was so grateful. And I felt so stupid because I hadn't even thought about a pillow. I just thought about a doona and being warm. So that was really great. His name was David. He's been here for 2 months on the Central Coast living like this. He's from Melbourne. I didn't ask any questions, but I did say to him, how do you communicate with people? And he said, I actually go to the library and I check my emails every day. So then I said, you know, are you happy to share your email, David? So then I raced into Red Grasshopper and got a pen and paper and he wrote down his email for me. So I look forward to being able to message David and hopefully give him some different places to go to assist him in that way. So that was one story. But as I said, he didn't ask for food. He didn't ask for money. He just needed warmth and just asked for a blanket. And as far as I know, he was heading to the Sound Shell, the shelter. I just want to share with you some data that I received from Anglicare from their what's called their front doors. So it's when people go in asking for assistance in both Burnie and Devonport. So these are the stats that have come back from Central Coast. So please bear with me. And this is a period from the 1st of July 2021 to 22nd of June 2022. Gawler 1. So these are people that are gone in asking for assistance in housing. Gawler 1, Guns Plains 1, Sprint 2, Turners Beach 2, Ulverston 74, Upper Castra 1, West Ulverston 10, Caprona 1, Haybridge 2, Penguin 13, South Royanna 3, and Sulphur Creek 1. So that gives you a good indication, and there's probably more than that. And these are just people that have actually gone somewhere. These are not also the people that haven't gone anywhere for that period of time, and they're probably out there in God knows where. I also want to share an email that I received today saying congratulations on your initiative. There will be many logistical barriers raised against implementing your scheme. One solution would be to have a group of people committed to perhaps rostering facilities, providing some supervision and organising towels, toiletries, as well as providing information about support services in the community. I would be happy to be part of the group or provide any form of practical assistance to get your idea off the ground. Kind regards, Bev. So if we can take some of these into consideration and maybe, you know, look at different things like that, we might be able to do a bit more. And I just want to thank everyone for all the support, all the people that have actually reached out to me and told their own little stories and little ideas. That's been fantastic. And I just, thank everyone for listening.
Councillor Dick-Rose, we have gone well over time on this item, but I don't think anybody is going to be able to begrudge that for 1 minute. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Well done, Councillor Dick-Rose. Public question time. Anybody has a question, please feel free to ask. Now is your opportunity.
Make a comment rather than question. I just want to also congratulate all this work that you've done. Can I also just say a lot of it does come down to education, because I, for one, didn't realise what a huge problem it was on the Central Coast. And I'm sure there's many, many, many people in the same boat as me. So education, I think, is a really integral part of this play. Thank you.
Any questions?
Alan around the corner.
Just a comment, Mayor Jam, to the councillors. I'd just like to thank you for the decorum shown through a difficult period here tonight. It's not easy bringing these things up. I've been through it myself over the years, not homeless, been on council. And also I'd like to thank Councillor Casey Hiskett and Gary Carpenter for attending the area down on Knights Road, re the development on South Road. They came down and had a look and had a talk to us. So I'd like to thank you both, and also that little road job that I mentioned to you, Casey, has been fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions, we'll continue. We've come to the end of community services. So Councillor Fuller, you had a question for the Director.
I did, Mayor. And what would that have been? Because I'm sure it wasn't near as important as what we've just been discussing. Thank you. Question to the Director of Community Services. We did touch on it before, so I'm just wondering, Darryl, if you've had an opportunity to think about a timeline for the commencement of the work for the Dial reference group, or the group that we might pull together that might would be looking at the recreational activities in the Dial range. Have you had a chance to think about what timeline that piece of work might have attached to it, please?
What is this in relation to the dog park management?
The mountain bike group and
or the mountain bike.
The mountain bike group.
Yeah, thank you. We have a few DAR related
yes, sorry, you're doing
actions on the go. That is one that I'm responsible for. The think the agreement from council was that a committee should be formed involving councillors and the Gold Coast Mountain Bike Club to further progress their objectives. So we'll actually be commencing that work. We'll be engaging with the club imminently. September is the start date for that project to scope up what that committee's terms of reference should look like, with a view to the new council being able to endorse that terms of reference and get on with the job.
Thank you. Right, 10.7, the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan. We'd like to move this be adopted. Oh, Councillor Fuller, I should not. Oh, indeed, I would like to. Have a second.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have worked through this together at a workshop setting. So hopefully councillors are all familiar with the content and the intent. And I thank the Director for acknowledging in the report the individuals that made up the group. I think it was, I think there were some good lessons learned about those type of strategies or plans going forward. We talked before about the success of the drop-in sessions. Certainly when staff were able to attend, they did, and that certainly allowed them to freely speak about what their experience was on whatever topic and how it related to them. And of course, importantly for me, the establishment of an ongoing reference group that, as I put it, can keep their eye on the work. And we have a broad range of work that we are responsible for, and a lot of plans and a big budget and a variety of activities, haven't we? So to be able to embrace a completely external group of people with lived experience in disability and access issues that is endorsed and engaged to come to us, twice a year or thereabouts, and keep us on track and give us more things to think about. Then certainly that's something that was personally important to me, and I was very pleased that that the group and that councillors have endorsed that. So I would recommend the plan to you. I thank the Director and his staff for their work also. And as I said, I think it provides a bit of a template for some other community work that we're going to be doing going forward. So I'd endorse the plan for your consideration and approval.
Thank you. I just think this is such an elegant idea. When I come to the annual plan, I approach it through my lens as an able-bodied person, and I don't have the capacity to approach this, other than empathetically, with someone who's less abled. And this just puts that lens across anything we do that just says, hey, have you thought about? And I may or may not have that ability myself, and this just provides it. I really think what's been produced here, and have to absolutely congratulate the work of Councillor Fuller and council staff and the other members of the public who helped with this. Yeah, it's just elegant is the only word I can use to describe it. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to endorse those comments about Councillor Fuller, because she's done a mountain of work on this with the council staff, and to thank them as well. I did note she says we've got a large budget. We have got a large budget, but it's stretched thinly, unfortunately. We don't like to put our rates up too much, and it would be lovely to have a bit more funds in our budgets to be able to deal with everything, the homeless situation, disability, a myriad of different things. So yeah, I concur, but I don't know whether we've got a big budget that we can actually work through as much as we can. But yeah, I endorse the inclusion plan, disability inclusion plan. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
I just want to say congratulations to all involved. It's fabulous to, well, I believe in Central Coast, we're really sort of amping things up as far as keeping in contact with our community and trying to improve people's lives. And this isn't only, helping those with any form of disability, but also the elderly within our community, or anyone who's had an operation or, struggling to get around at the moment. So yeah, it's fabulous to see, and yeah, congratulations to all.
Any other speakers? Thank you. Of course, words of the other councillors. Councillor, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for those words, and congratulations to the staff. It was great on that working group to have people that live in other municipalities. So we had not only some professional staff that work in the space that may have lived elsewhere, but a Devonport resident and a Wynyard resident also. So, and they were, yeah, full of praise and congratulations for the end product and how great it was that they would come forth with their expertise, and they introduced us to people in their circles and their groups of friends that do live in Central Coast. So now we've expanded that capacity for some collective knowledge. Yes, so we have a large budget that has lots of moving parts and is very complex, and it's often hard to keep one's eye on everything. So to your point, Councillor Beresford. No, just to ask that Council embrace the plan.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.8 is development application determinations. There's a schedule there. Can I have somebody move that?
So moved, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Beresford. Seconded, please.
Second.
Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Any queries on those schedule? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Is carried. 10.1 for infrastructure services. 10.9, the tenders for a bridge replacement at Laurel Creek, Loyatier Road, Loyatier.
So moved.
Thanks, Councillor
Second.
Viney. Seconded, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Viney, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, part of our ongoing program of bridge replacements that's going on. Because it's up the back of Loyatier doesn't necessarily mean it goes unnoticed, and it's probably just as important as any other bridge within the municipality. It's also very gratifying that we've actually come in under budget, which may help our audit committee along with the decisions in the future. Make our chairman more happy.
Yeah.
Happy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No, Mayor, I think he said it all.
Motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? 10.10 is statutory determinations. There's a schedule there. Can I have somebody move that be received? I think you've got a new. No, sorry. No.
So moved, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hiskett.
I'll second that.
Councillor Beresford. Any queries on those determinations? Motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. That brings us to the end of the open part of our meeting tonight. So thank you all very much for coming.
Yeah. Okay, see ya.
Thanks.
See ya.
Hey, Patrick. Good, how are you?